There we go.
And you can go ahead and move on to the next slide. All right. When I thought I would like change metaphors on you, here we are again looking at a slide that we looked at as we were kind of doing the budget process this spring. And I'm bringing it up mostly just to give a sense of things that have been happening and kind of where we're heading, because I think all of us were hoping that we'd be heading downhill by now. But even when we did the budget process, we knew that we were working on FY22, but that we had a series of challenges between now and FY23. The significant thing with this slide is actually when I showed this as part of the budget process, on the left-hand side, the Community Safety Initiative, we only had one thing checked on this entire screen, which was that May 10th work session. And since then, as you know, we've had a couple of work sessions around the Community Safety Initiative. You have another one coming up on October 11th, and we'll continue to adjust and adapt that over time and over the years. So that's going to be an ongoing thing we work on. A similar ad hoc committee, police policy, we've had several work sessions, and that is also work that is going to continue on this fall and over the next year and years as we dive into each of those recommendations and determine how to move them forward. As you know, we're always ongoing monitoring our funding and operations. But since we met last, you've kind of updated your values and goal statements, which I think is a significant milestone along the way. We have completed a lot of our work around the American Rescue Plan Act in terms of understanding what our needs are and what the guidelines are. And we have a work session coming up on that with you, and we'll be discussing that also with the Budget Committee. And then I couldn't actually remember because I don't put my notes inside the platform. I was like, what did I talk about with these three things with the FY22 Budget Committee? But the reality is this committee is going to be very engaged in an ongoing way as we work through the fall. So if you want to click it just one more time, Twyla, you know, the reality is we've sort of moved from here to here as we get to FY23. And we have a lot of information to share with you tonight. I guess I do want to talk about, just as a tiny bit of a setting, I will poke some fun at myself at the end of this presentation, and we will continue to have fun even as we're going through these challenges. But I think, you know, over the years, we've talked about the difference between having a stable budget and a sustainable budget. And the City Council's priorities have always included a sustainable budget, which is something you just reaffirmed when you did your goal statement. And part of having a sustainable budget is really making sure that the organization, the workload, the resources, everything is right size. It's not just about money in and money out. And as you know, when we talked about the CSI, we talked a lot about fatigue and burnout of employees and of police employees. And I have to say that fatigue is organization wide as we enter, you know, deeply into our second year of pandemic response, wildfire response, and all the other work that we're doing. So it is something that we're going to continue to talk about through this fall, is just, you know, how do we continue to weather this storm and get the whole team off the peak and down to the other side of the hill. So with that, I think I'll just turn it over to Twyla to go through a lot of numbers, and then I will wrap us up when we get to the end.
Thank you, Sarah. So good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I'm Twyla Miller, the city's finance director, and I'm here to give you a bit of a financial update. So as we talk about the financial condition of the city, I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about how our experience might be different from other jurisdictions. We often hear how well the economy is doing at the national or the state level, or just how other local jurisdictions' experience is different from ours. So as you can see from the headlines here, our national and local economies are recovering from the pandemic faster than originally anticipated. This has been aided by federal stimulus and rebounding markets. However, the city doesn't directly benefit from many of this good news and these upswings in the economy. If the job market increases, income tax revenues may be increased for the state, but we don't receive those at the city. Also, unlike some other local governments elsewhere, the city doesn't receive sales tax. So increases to consumer spending do not increase the tax revenue for the city. And despite the recent uptick in housing values, property taxes in Oregon have constitutional limitations. So the takeaway here really is that comparisons between our government and other jurisdictions are difficult to make. because each government has a different set of revenues and provides a different set of services. Now I'd like to talk a bit about the general fund. As you'll recall, the general fund represents this discretionary funding for the city that aren't required to be used for a specific purpose. So they're really our most flexible funds. This slide details general fund revenues, with the top 3 revenue types accounting for 80% of total revenues, with property taxes representing the largest share at 65%. The upper right table shows the actual average growth of these revenue types over the 3 years prior to the pandemic. Property tax revenue is generally limited to approximately 4% growth per year. Contribution in lieu of tax, or SILT revenue received from EWEB, is driven by the price of electricity and how much is consumed. EWEB has tried to minimize price increases over the past few years, and warmer winter weather has put downward pressure on consumption, resulting in relatively flat SILT revenues for the city. And then there are service charges, which include revenues from recreation, library, spay and neuter clinic, police and fire services, and many others. But unlike property taxes or SILT, where we have limited or no control over the amount of revenue we receive, we can influence this revenue category through the fees we charge for city services. Of course, we must also consider accessibility and affordability across all income levels. The bottom right table shows the average growth rates across all general fund revenues. The actual average growth rate from FY17 to FY19 prior to the pandemic was 5.2%. It's worth noting that we had some new revenue streams start during this time period, including state and local marijuana taxes and the Comcast non-cable right-of-way fees, which is the same revenue we could potentially be losing soon. Excluding these new revenue streams, the actual average growth rate would have been 4.2%. The average annual growth during the pandemic years is anticipated to be approximately 1.5%. We'll have a better idea of the pandemic's impact later this fall when we finalize FY21 financial data. And then the projected average growth rate from FY23 to FY27 is 3.7%. This figure is from the FY22 adopted forecast and does not include the potential loss of Comcast revenue. So this slide details general fund expenses. You can see personnel is the largest category at 75% of total expenditures, which makes sense as it takes people to provide the many services we deliver to our community. Other expenses include materials and services and non-departmental expenses, which are primarily made up of transfers to other funds. The upper right table shows the average growth of these expense categories over 3 adopted budgets prior to the pandemic. Personnel expenses grow faster than materials and services due to cost increases above typical inflation, such as PERS costs, health costs, and risk rates. The bottom right table shows the average growth rates across all general fund expenses compared to revenues over the same time periods that we saw on the revenue slide. This data shows that the expense growth was keeping pace with revenue growth before the pandemic and is expected to exceed revenue growth during the pandemic. This makes it difficult to add ongoing expenses, build reserves, or weather unanticipated events. It's worth noting that the projected average expense growth rate of 3.1% is based on the FY22 adopted budget forecasts. So as Sarah mentioned, the City Council has a goal around fiscal stewardship for fair, stable, and adequate financial resources, which includes a long-term sustainable budget, new or expanded revenue sources, and new and accessible and transparent financial information. I also wanted to take a moment to remind you of the financial measures we use when we're looking at our financial health. The first is, are we living within our means? This is a situation where our revenues are greater than or equal to our expenditures so that we have a stable service system over time. This is measured by the surplus, deficit, in the fund in each year. When we have a surplus, those funds increase the reserve, and when we have a deficit, our reserves are decreased. Our second measure is, do we have an adequate savings account? This helps us weather unexpected events and allows us to take time to develop a strategy rather than immediately having to cut services. In the general fund, our savings account is the reserve for revenue shortfall, and our goal pre-pandemic was to have at least 8% reserve, or about $14 million annually. So next, I'm going to talk a bit about updates to our forecast assumptions and how they impact those measures. So we often talk about the range of assumptions that impact our financial outlook. Staff are continually monitoring the many impacts to our financial condition and updating estimates as new information becomes known. As we come into the fall, the items shown here are some of the areas we're seeing that potential changes as we look to the coming year. So the first is unfunded community needs. Since the Great Recession, we have had limited ability to add ongoing services to our service system, and we have used a strategy of using one-time dollars to make progress and gain momentum in key areas such as downtown, homelessness, and climate. Prior to the pandemic, our budget approach was to begin to incrementally shift those services from one-time funding sources to ongoing funding sources as resources allowed. While some progress was made in this area in the FY22 budget, these services really are not adequately funded in FY23 and beyond when we look at the service system supported by the general fund. Next is the FCC order and Comcast revenues. We've talked about this one before. This is the rule change by the Federal Communications Commission, which preempts local governments from regulating or imposing fees related to non-cable service providers that rely on the use of the public right-of-way. Although the rule took effect in September of 2019, Comcast is still collecting from their customers and remitting taxes to the city. We anticipate at some point in the future they will stop paying, and this will be a $3.9 million ongoing impact annually to the general fund. And then there's the pandemic. The ongoing pandemic has been very unpredictable, as is evident by our current experience today. Variants and the threat of additional waves can bring continued uncertainty about how events will unfold, including when we return to normal and what exactly that might look like. And then there's property taxes. As I said before, property tax revenue is a large component of our general fund revenues. We will receive updated property tax information from the Lane County Assessor later this fall, which will help inform our FY23 property tax revenues and also inform our long-term indicators for property tax revenues in the general fund. And then there are personnel costs. So these costs are really impacted by collective bargaining agreements, PERS costs, and other drivers such as health benefits. So the chart at the top shows our two financial goals, the surplus deficit and the reserve. And this was as of our FY22 adopted budget forecast on July 1st. At this point in time, under that set of assumptions, we met our minimum target of at least $4 million in the reserve, and we were in a surplus position with our reserves beginning to increase by the end of the forecast period. The chart at the bottom takes the FY22 adopted budget forecast and incorporates three changes into the assumptions. The first change adds $1.7 million of ongoing investments for areas such as downtown and homelessness efforts starting in FY23. This is a placeholder amount as the ongoing service component has not yet been defined, and any actions would come, of course, to council as part of the budget process. But we recognize there's an ongoing investment needed that isn't reflected in our current base service system. The second update adds additional personnel expenses related to two things. The first is the ratification of the IAF contract for fire, and those costs begin in FY22. And the second is higher PERS costs that begin in FY24. PERS costs are anticipated to increase about $2.5 million in the out years of the forecast due to a recent PERS board decision to reduce the assumed earnings rate for the PERS system from 7.2% to 6.9%. This change is estimated to cause payroll rates to increase by an average of 2.7%. And again, that change is anticipated to begin in FY24. And then the third assumption is really around Comcast revenues. And in this version of the forecast, we've assumed that they stop paying revenues. We lose the $3.9 million to the general fund beginning in FY23. And so while Comcast is still collecting and remitting, we're not sure when they might stop paying, but this seems like a possible scenario. So if those assumptions were all true and all other factors stay the same, you can see we would be in a deficit position across the forecast period, and we would deplete our reserves without taking any further actions. So how do those changes that I just talked about impact the general fund? So let's review reduction strategies needed to maintain the target reserve level of at least $4 million a year and 4% of expenditures in the reserve at the end of the forecast period. So if you think back to the FY22 adopted budget, that forecast assumed a future reduction strategy of $2.5 million beginning in FY24. Due to the increased expenses and reduced revenues included in the scenario I just went over, the future reduction strategy is significantly increased in order to meet minimum reserve targets. It would require $3.8 million ongoing in 23, an additional $9.3 million ongoing in 24, which equates to $13.1 million in ongoing changes over the forecast. So I do want to emphasize that this is an estimate. It's an estimate based on a set of assumptions at a point in time. There are many things that can impact our future financial condition, and staff will be updating the general fund forecast as we come into the fall for all of our assumptions. So this includes property tax revenues, the results of our audit, our year-to-date experience, what we're seeing happening with inflation, and all of the many other drivers that impact our general fund forecast. So while I think this is a reasonable estimate of what could happen, the numbers will likely change up or down based on updated information, but this is a good estimate of what we know today. I'd also like to talk a little bit about what's happening outside of the general fund. So throughout the pandemic, there's been a lot of uncertainty about the impact of the pandemic on our community and the economy, which continues with the Delta variant. The pandemic has had an impact to every fund in the city, some far more than others. And we do continue to operate in a time of uncertainty, and we're always learning new information. It seems like we learn something new every day. For example, just last Friday, we learned that due to current circumstances, 4J will not allow city use of their facilities for recreation activities, which has the impact of canceling the fall leagues and activities we would normally hold in those spaces, which will put additional downward pressure on city revenues. We do have some good news, though, in the midst of all the uncertainty. As we've discussed previously, the airport, which was heavily impacted in the first year of the pandemic, received federal funding under the CARES Act and other federal funds, and is seeing travel return to pre-pandemic levels, which is a great thing, along with new routes offered by new carriers. Staff will be monitoring travel levels as we come into the fall and winter to see if this trend holds. The Cultural Services Fund has been a recipient of the Save Our Stages Act, receiving $2.5 million in July, and they anticipate approximately receiving $1.2 million in additional installment in the coming year, both of which will help stabilize that fund. Additionally, transient room tax revenues are up over the summer and appear to be trending more towards pre-pandemic levels. And shows are also scheduled to be coming back to the Hult Center this fall, and staff are gearing up for a full year of activity in 2022 calendar year. The ambulance transport does have a structural imbalance, which has been exacerbated by the lower transports during the pandemic and has needed financial support from the general fund to remain in a positive position. Staff are monitoring the fund and transport levels as we come into the fall to determine if additional support will be needed. Additionally, we talked a bit about the parking fund, which was heavily impacted by the pandemic. At the onset of the pandemic, commercial tenant revenue declined sharply as downtown employees worked remotely and businesses were closed. Parking services temporarily ceased issuing parking citations, curtailed all optional expenses, and reassigned staff to support other programs to help stabilize the fund. General fund support was also necessary to keep the fund in a positive position, and there were additional impacts to the general fund as the parking fund was not in a position to support the downtown safety team as it had in previous years with the transfer to the general fund. It is expected that over time, the parking program will recover as the downtown business community and the University of Oregon campus returns to more pre-pandemic activity levels. In FY22, operations will be monitored closely to see if additional financial support is needed as we come into the winter and spring, and services will be added back as funding becomes available over time. I do want to point out that the general fund gap that I just talked about on the last slide does not assume any further support for distressed funds beyond the support already given by the general fund. Next, we'll talk a little bit about ARPA, or the American Rescue Plan. The city expects to receive $35 million from the American Rescue Plan. We received half in May of 2021, and we'll expect to receive the second tranche in May of 2022. While at this time reserve replenishment is not allowed under Treasury rules, the National League of Cities has recommended to Treasury that reserve replenishment for financial stability should be allowed. So staff will continue to monitor rules as they're developed and released for updates. We often hear the question, why don't you use ARPA funds to solve the general fund gap? And I have a couple of thoughts there. The first is ARPA funds are one-time dollars and the general fund gap is ongoing. So while in the short term, the ARPA funds would help provide some relief, it really doesn't solve the long-term gap we're seeing on an ongoing basis in the general fund. The other thing we think about is there are a lot of funding needs beyond the distress funds that could qualify for ARPA funds. And a lot of those areas need continued support. And you will hear more about those and the plan for ARPA at your work session on Wednesday, September 29th. So as we move into the fall, we will continue to monitor all of the levers that impact our financial footprint. And as we think about the health of our service system and the needs of the community, there are a number of factors we want to consider. Currently, there are a number of areas where we have made targeted one-time investments over the past few years, including housing and homelessness, downtown, climate recovery, and others. It is clear that ongoing support for these programs over current levels in our service system are needed. The forecast estimate I showed you earlier does have a $1.7 million placeholder as a start for these types of services, but it does not right size ongoing service levels needed for these activities in the out years of the forecast. Additionally, we'll need to take steps to address the gap in the general fund. We will have new information on forecast assumptions over the next couple of months, and we will gain additional experience over the next year, which will help inform our actions. This will be a multi-year effort to address the gap as we look to stabilize. So as part of this effort, it will be important to shore up our reserves to ensure future financial flexibility. We don't know what the future will bring, and having a higher reserve level would be critical for our financial health, our ability to respond to events, and also demonstrate strong financial management to our community, to bondholders, and also our credit rating agency Moody's. And then as we look to the future, there will be several conversations happening around creating a sustainable service system, including but not limited to addressing critical unfunded needs of the community, taking care of city assets, ensuring technology and equipment are in place to provide services, maintaining a healthy organization, and the ability to provide a broad range of services to our community. As we think about our current service levels, several services are currently supported by bonds and levies that will be up for renewal over the forecast period. Our current street bond, which was passed in November 2017, and is providing over $51 million to fix streets and fund bicycle and pedestrian projects, will be ending, and another measure would be needed on the ballot to continue progress on these types of projects, potentially in November of 2022. The local option levy for parks and recreation services will expire at the end of FY23, and the levy would need to be renewed or alternate funding source identified for these services if they are to continue. Likewise, the local option levy for library services would need to be renewed no later than the November 2025 election or an alternate funding source identified there as well. And then Councilor Zelenka has asked for a work session on new funding sources to be considered for climate change and homelessness, which is currently in the process of being scheduled. So all of these elements, both current and future needs, will be considered as we move forward for this moment and work towards a sustainable system. So next steps in the short term are these. So you have some work sessions coming up. There's the ARPA work session on the 29th of September, the Community Safety Initiative work session on the 11th. There's 2 budget committee meetings to consider the outcome of that work. Staff will bring back some information on October 20th and 27th. And then like we did last year, we're also gonna have a supplemental budget committee meeting on December 8th. So this will be the week prior to when the City Council holds a public hearing and adopts the supplemental budget on December 13th. So with that, a lot of information, I'm gonna turn things back to Sarah.
Yeah, and you can advance the slide because I promised you that I would poke fun at myself. And I'll just say that because I've made so many references to Basecamp that even my non-city friends are sending me cartoons about Basecamp. So just a little bit of fun. You can probably stop sharing, Twyla. I know that's a lot of information, and you're going to have plenty of opportunities to ask questions tonight, and also just as we go forward and in our one-on-one conversations as well. We'll continue to approach this as we have over the last couple of years, in terms of it's not just about reductions, but it's also about investments, because there's a lot of priorities that you're wanting to make an impact on that, as Twyla noted, we're already starting to anticipate needing to add those in, because they're not new, they're important. So with that, I think we'll turn it over to you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. That was a lot to digest, and I actually find myself sort of circling through what you just did to make sure I've actually got it. But so it looks like Matt has a question, so I'll turn it over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Mayor. I find the funding considerations slide intriguing, and was poking around at ODOT's current fuel tax rate webpage, and was examining the fuel tax rates in addition to the state of Oregon's tax rate of 36 cents a gallon and the federal government's tax rate of, I believe it's 18.4 cents per gallon. Each municipality can charge their own rates, and the city of Portland charges 10 cents per gallon, and the city of Coburg 6 cents per gallon, and the city of Eugene at 5 cents per gallon. When was the last time the municipality adjusted our local gasoline fuel tax rates here in Eugene? Yeah, I'll leave the question there and go from there. Thanks.
I don't recall the date of that. Would have to get back to you. It's possible that Matt might know, but he's an attendee and not a panelist. So I think we'd have to get back to you. It's been a while.
Okay. It was late 08 or it was early 09.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That long ago.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. We talked about, Twyla, you mentioned the dip in the parking revenue. During the pandemic, normally I'd be driving, 12,000 miles a year, around the national average. And I'd be shocked if I put on 2,000 miles, if that, last year. So I think it especially if Councillor Clark, if your memory is accurate, which it often is, and if it was really 08, 09, yeah, I think it's worth exploring. Just at the very least, to be on par with our neighbors to the north, the city of Coburg, a much smaller municipality, and jet fuel for that matter. Whereas consumers who are sharing the road are spending 36 cents state, 5 cents locally, 10 cents Portland. The jet fuel consumption is around 3 cents per gallon. I think it's worth exploring jet fuel as well. But I'd be very interested to see where our colleagues land on adjusting our local fuel consumption for the municipality as one lever among many that are needed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mike and then Claire.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really glad to hear my colleague bring up that question, as someone who continually brings up the fact that in our climate goal measurements, we rarely talk about the tons and tons and tons of fuel that is burned with our airport. And I think that's a very interesting discussion. I'd welcome it. The biggest source of our city's revenue is property taxes, right, Twyla? I mean, it's not really
general fund, yes.
So I wonder why it is we never talk about strategies for increasing the amount of property tax revenue we receive, aside from the rate constrictions that exist in state law. Because there are policy decisions we can make that would radically increase the amount of money we receive in property taxes. For example, just hypothetically, a piece of land, Twyla, please correct me if I'm off too badly on this, but My rough guesstimates of what I've seen, a piece of bare land almost triples in value as soon as you build a house on it, right? More or less. So do the taxes at that point. City of Beaverton, with half our population, has set a goal this next year to build 500 new houses. We'll barely get over 200 new houses built this year, single family. If you go back 12 years, we were building 800 or 900 new houses a year, and we desperately need them. Anything, in my opinion, that we can do to be building new single family homes both helps with the housing shortage, the price of housing, the problem of homelessness, and increases our tax revenues. I can't think of a more important goal than what do we need to do to be more helpful to see more homes built. If we looked at another pet issue of mine, there are 22,000 people who live in River Road and Santa Clara, and they're not parts of the city. If we were to annex as few as 500 of those houses in, it's a couple of million a year in new taxes. And we can do that in a way where it makes sense to them to do it voluntarily. I'm not talking about forced annexation. I don't think I'd ever agree with that. But we have the capacity to offer it to them as something they could do and participate fully in the city and increase our tax base. Those two things are things I really hope we begin to talk more about, because I think we're going to face budget issues to debate over the next at least 2 or 3 years. And there are simple policy decisions that can help us increase our tax base. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire.
Thank you, Mayor. So my colleagues' questions and comments triggered some questions for me. So in terms of the gas tax on automobiles, which I would absolutely be interested in looking into raising, what is our limitation of how those revenues can be used?
You're going to force me to bring Matt Rodriguez in from attendee to panelist so he can talk to you more specifically.
I can answer the question. We can only use those on roads, right?
Right,
we can't use them to fund the general fund.
Yeah, correct. They definitely have a specific use. I thought you wanted more specifics around what that actually meant.
Raising the general fact that they're not going to fill our general fund gap. So I think that's important for us to recall. It might help us with the bond, you know, and maybe we could reduce the bond if we raise revenues elsewhere. And then I suspect the aviation fuel tax has to also be used for things at the airport. Since every other revenue we raise at the airport has to be used at the airport.
Yeah, I would assume that too. And we can, all these questions, sort of like during the budget committee, we can come back with a response, more detailed response.
Sure. So I just think it's important for us to, I mean, I appreciate thinking about other revenues, but then we need to know that then there's sometimes restrictions on them. And then in terms of what Councillor Clark was speaking to, the fact is that multifamily housing and higher rise, denser housing would have a much greater impact on our revenues relative to the cost of providing services to those buildings. And actually single family homes like the one I live in become a net loss for our taxes because in terms of their contribution to the tax base versus the cost of providing services to them. And we had a really compelling presentation, a visual presentation on this a few years ago, I think from Denny Brow, that visually presented this reality in terms of net gains of tax revenue from high-rise buildings versus single-family homes, or also commercial buildings like Walmart, which take up a ton of space and don't really add value and cost a lot in terms of our need to send streets and roads and other services out there, versus commercial buildings that go up. So sticking to our commitment to build more densely and vertically will actually do what Councillor Clark is saying, increase the property value of those properties, and then not be as expensive to provide service to as if we were building just single family homes or one-story commercial
Thank you for bringing that up. I was thinking the same thing as Mike was speaking about that, and I know he wants to respond to it, so I'm going to turn it over to him. Since there's no other counselors waving hands, go for it.
Just real quickly to say that I went and attended that private presentation that consultant put forward. It wasn't Denny, and then saw the presentation again when it was made before council, and had a few conversations with him. It was, in my opinion, it was based on some incredibly faulty assumptions, and it was pretty easy to knock down argumentatively as it applies to our city from that outside consultant. And I'd be happy to debate that anytime. Not today, obviously, but with my colleague, he made some valid points, but his overall assumption was incorrect. But yeah, either way, the larger point I was trying to make was making more of the land we have and building more homes for people, however we do it, obviously increases the tax base, and it increases our ability to respond to the demand for services we have, as well as then voluntary annexation. So I'm hoping that this council does more discussions around that, and I welcome the debate and discussion around that consultant's presentation. But those are the ways we grow our tax base, which is the most effective way we can see revenues increase and meet the demand for services. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Mayor. I was actually trying to refrain from saying anything on this part because I know there's going to be lots of questions during the time we get together with the budget committee, but I just wanted to go back to the airport issue and the fuel tax there for a moment. I think it'll be very important, Sarah and Matt, when we start having that discussion. I think it's a good discussion to have, but just what the effects are with our market. And I know for a fact when LifeFlight was flying out of fire headquarters at 2nd and Chambers, they tried everything they could to fuel up in other locations just because the cost was less, and it makes a significant difference to the bottom line, especially for a nonprofit. But just in the larger sense, you know, we are not doing ourselves any favor if we're pushing people to fuel up at other locations, because then we lose the revenue we're already taking and we don't gain anything. So making sure we understand what our market looks like, I think is going to be incredibly important for that discussion. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I just have one just sort of following on this conversation about housing and development, and we have housing going in, we have some MUPTs that will expire over the coming years. We're expecting a lot of housing to go in on the riverfront development. So when you're projecting out property taxes, are you making any assumptions about that, or do you just leave that out of the formula until you know more?
As far as the MUPTs, yes, we do have, we do look at when those are expiring, and we roll the larger ones into the forecast. We do offset that with an expenditure, assuming that we would receive council direction to do something. So we are recognizing that, but it's kind of a neutral to the forecast.
Thank you. Greg.
Now I can talk. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. One of the things I think that we have kicked around before in the past is some type of utility tax or utility fee. I think that that might be a nice corollary between, you know, what we're putting out in terms of energy consumption, and also being able to account for climate change through that mechanism. I know people are loath to, you know, raise your taxes. I am too. I don't like higher taxes, but we may look at something, and I'm thinking it would be a good way to look at it, is looking at some type of utility fee or tax. You have to cap utility fees because you have to, you know, not exceed what the cost of the instrument is, but it could be one of the ways that we could add revenue that we don't have available right now.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Mayor. Just piggybacking off Councilor. Well, before I go into Councilor Clark and Councilor Syret's conversation, I want to piggyback off Councilor Evans' utility conversation. At the height of our negotiations with folks here locally in the fossil fuel industry, said fossil fuel industry was actively trying to lure customers who were electric to natural gas, giving them a $500 rebate. I would be very interested in exploring how we tax. I would go so far as to tax that $500 at 100%, tax the utility, that is. But I would be very interested in Councilor Evans' suggestions. And back to I guess it was a conversation inspired by the dialogue between Councilor Syret and Councilor Clark. In Vancouver, British Columbia, and recently considered in Los Angeles, there's a vacancy tax on homes that are not occupied. So we wouldn't be, if we were to explore a vacancy tax, we wouldn't necessarily be taxing full-time residents of the municipality. And I think it's certainly worth putting that and everything on the table as well. Thanks.
Interesting. Thank you very much for that pretty sobering conversation. So I appreciate getting the heads up that that's what we're looking at. And I think with that, if there are no other comments, we're ready to close out this. Thank you very much, Twyla. And we're ready, I think, to move on to our second item on the agenda. So yep. I'll turn it back over to the manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Our second topic is really talking about the census updates and ward boundaries. I'm going to ask Jason Dedrick to just jump on in.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jason Dedrick, Policy Analyst in the City Manager's Office. I'm going to share my screen here with you for a presentation on the Ward Boundary Project. All right, is that looking good? Okay, so update on the 2020 Census and Ward Population Project. This is your third work session on this topic. Your first was in February. Your second was in June. This is your first work session where we now have final census data. So looking forward to getting your feedback on what we'll present, and a reminder that the objective or the hope for staff out of this work session is that you will move to forward one or two scenarios to the public for their engagement over the next month. So it's not so much kind of nitty-gritty details of where should ward boundary lines be, but just sort of are the two scenarios that staff have presented sufficient to generate some good engagement. So that's kind of the goal for this evening. So a quick overview of where we'll go here in the presentation. I'll review that final census data with you. We'll review how boundary scenarios were developed, and then we'll actually walk through in some detail both of those boundary scenarios. So a reminder of the background on this project. The purpose is to ensure the wards have as equal representation as possible in terms of population. This happens every 10 years based on US Census data. We now do know that boundary changes are necessary to bring us closer to equal representation in each ward. And you have already provided staff direction on how to create those new boundary scenarios with a set of criteria. And that was back at your June meeting. So looking at the data, you can see here at the bottom, the new census population for Eugene, 176,945. If you take that population and divide it by 8, you get the theoretical target population. If each ward could ideally have 22,118 people exactly, it would be perfect. We, of course, won't get quite there, but then what that tells us gives us a sense for how far, in the final column there on the right, how far we are in each ward from that target population. So for example, looking at some of the ones that are furthest from that target, Ward 2 is below that target by 6.7%. Ward 3 is above that target by 8.4%. And then our largest ward, Ward 7, at over 24,000 people, exceeds that target by 9%. So a little context on these numbers. First, you may recall that we presented you some estimates from Portland State University earlier this year. And this data is fairly different from that data that was presented, which is somewhat to be expected. That was really just to give us a sense for where we were tracking on our population, but it was clearly an estimate over many years. And so this is the final data that we will use. And then sort of casting back to 2010, these differences from target are actually smaller than they were back in 2011 when we were doing this process. And they also happen to be geographically situated in a way that has made developing scenarios actually easier than it was 10 years ago. So a little context compared to that last effort. So a reminder of the criteria that you approved for staff. First, you said there should be a range difference of 3% plus or minus amongst wards. So for example, when we're finished, the largest ward could theoretically be 2% over the target and the smallest 1% under, making for a total difference of 3%. You said we should work with the census data and not assume potential growth, which for example would be undersizing a ward where you thought growth might occur. You said not to do that. You said to pursue an incremental change approach and not sort of a start from scratch. And that becomes even more appropriate now as we see that the changes necessary are relatively minor in nature. You said the options should be developed that neither advantage nor disadvantage incumbent elected officials. That would include both councilors as well as EWEB commissioners. However, you directed staff to not create scenarios that would remove an incumbent's residents from their ward. And we have, in fact, not done that with the scenarios that we'll be presenting tonight. A couple more criteria here. You said to develop scenarios that consider geographic and neighborhood features, including neighborhood association boundaries, and to strive for compactness and contiguity. And then finally, to provide demographic information with the scenarios so that you can see how potential changes might impact demographics. And that information is included in your packet for both the current population as well as the two scenarios. So this map shows you that difference in population from target for each of the wards. And what I want to do here is sort of walk you through how staff thought about this approach. One caveat first. Something that you may hear about this year was that the census built in a new policy called differential privacy. Sounds really wonky, and it is, but basically they were finding back with the 2010 data that the growth in access to data, sophistication of data mining, they were finding that in very small census blocks and even mid-sized census blocks, members of the US their privacy was being compromised because it was easy to identify who was who in some of those very small areas. So what the census has done has in effect what they call made the data fuzzier. And so what that means is we lose some of the specificity at the block level data, which is block level is what cities use. And so we lose a little of that specificity. It takes away the precision a little bit. And for that reason, the census is advising municipalities to not move census block by census block when changing boundaries, but instead to group census blocks. And I can tell you that staff have done that. We did that 10 years ago. That's always been our practice to only move in groups of census blocks. And that the changes you'll see tonight represent anywhere from 7 census blocks up to as many as 40. So we're never moving at that one census block level. So I'm going to walk you through staff's approach to creating the two scenarios that are in your packet. Starting on the northeast side of town, you can see Ward 4 is 2.4% smaller than it should be. Ward 5 is 3% bigger. Because Ward 4 is landlocked, so to speak, if we don't want to cross the Willamette River with Ward 4, the easiest way to make up that deficiency is with Ward 5. And so because they happen to be next to each other, we can make that adjustment by growing Ward 4 into Ward 5 and account for both differences at the same time. Similarly, if we move out west, you can see Ward 7 is over the target by 9%, and Ward 6 and 8 are combined under by 9.4%. So again, by growing Ward 6 into Ward 7, by growing Ward 8 into Ward 7, we would accomplish the target population or very close to it for all three at the same time. And then finally, looking at the south side of town, again, Ward 3 over that target by 8.4%. Wards 1 and Ward 2 are under by 8.5%, magically almost the same. So if we grew Ward 1 into Ward 3, Ward 2 into Ward 3, we would also address all three of those population differences from target with those couple simple moves. So that was the approach that staff took to creating scenarios. You can see as we walk through these that they are very similar to each other. And in part, that is because it seemed there was really one very solid way in general to meet these differences from target without having to create a lot of different ways. There really seemed one pretty sensible, straightforward way with some caveats, and that's why we created two scenarios. So walking through these scenarios in a little more detail. So let's start here on the north side of town again. We talked about growing Ward 4 into Ward 5, and you can see there within the red circle under this scenario where Ward 4 grows into Ward 5. That area ends up working fairly well for one reason, which is that it's completely surrounded by major arterials, kind of a Crescent, Norkenzie, Gillum, and Beltline sort of bound that area. And so that's one of the things we always try to do is have sort of clean dividing lines when we can. For those who are fans of contiguity, it may feel that it sort of extends a little bit into Ward 5 as sort of an appendage. So that might be one sort of downside with that. But the clean sort of neighborhoods bounded by those arterials were the reason that staff chose this option. Looking out west, again, Ward 6 has to grow into Ward 7. The area there circled in red is where that expansion would occur. It's bounded on the south by Royal Avenue and on the east by Fairfield Street. And I should say on that area, the goal here is to not cross Highway 99 with Ward 6. As you can see, that's sort of a clean line there. So really there wasn't, this made the most sense as a place to grow Ward 6 into Ward 7. And then looking at where Ward 8 would grow into Ward 7 under scenario 1, it's in the area circled here, bounded on the north by Royal, on the south by Elmira, and on the east again by Fairfield. So it makes a nice clean line between Ward 6, Ward 7, and Ward 8 with Fairfield on the east. And then going to the south part of town, you may recall again, Ward 1 needed to grow into Ward 3. This was accomplished by a 1-block move to the east between 8th and 18th. And so that's how that occurs. And then the Ward 2 expansion into Ward 3 under this scenario is between 24th and 30th Street, with Eleanor being the street that's on the eastern edge there. So those are the changes that would occur under scenario 1. If you look to the right there, you can see how this performs in reference to the target. So the largest ward would be 0.4% over, the smallest 0.8% under. So a total difference of 1.2%, well within 3% guideline that you gave to staff. So that is scenario 1. And now let me talk you through scenario 2, which has just some subtle changes. So starting again on the north, you can see here in red with the red circle where that expansion of Ward 4 to Ward 5 would occur under scenario 1. It's a little further to the north. Here in the orange, you can see where it was under scenario 1. So here under scenario 2, it's again, sort of for fans of contiguity, feels like it might fit a little better. One of the downsides to this is it isn't bounded by major arterials. It instead runs along some sort of neighborhood surface streets in terms of where those boundaries are. So, but there's gives you another possible option for where Ward 4 could grow into Ward 5. And in terms of under both scenarios, I wanted to show you another area that we looked at. As you can see, there's that notch there between Ward 4 and 5. And we said, well, what if we looked in this area and we could sort of straighten out that notch a little bit? What we found in this area was a very large census block that was actually much larger than what we needed population-wise and had a pretty irregular shape to it. So it didn't really end up being a good option as opposed to that. Under this scenario, scenario 2, the move of Ward 6 into Ward 8 is the same. The move of Ward 7 into Ward 8 is also the same under scenario 2. And also the same under scenario, and here I have one more thing on Ward 8. Let's see if I can go back to that. If you look there in the orange to the east of Ward 8, there south of Roosevelt, this was another area we looked for possible growth of Ward 8 into Ward 7. What we found in that orange circled area was some very large census blocks with very small populations. So this is a lot of commercial and industrial land. And the growth of Ward 8 into Ward 7 would need to be approximately as large as that orange circle. almost making the section of Ward 7 north of Roosevelt into a bit of an island. So that didn't seem like a good way to go for that as an option. Going back to the south end of town, the growth of Ward 1 into Ward 3 is the same under this scenario. One other change under this scenario, the other significant change is the growth of Ward 2 into Ward 3. So you'll remember, scenario 1 had a bit more of a north-south orientation. Scenario 2 has more of an east-west orientation. And so that takes in Laurel Wood Golf Course. And you can see here in orange, the area that was the area of the scenario 1 expansion. Now, one other option was that we looked at was, well, could we grow on the north side? Didn't feel like a great way to go, that area in orange there, because of contiguity, sort of extended that kind of peninsula of Ward 2 north. And also would sort of cut Ward 1 off from Ward 3, maybe shortcutting options that we might need 10 years from now in terms of growing Ward 1 in some way. So that was sort of our thinking on both of those options. I will tell you that in most cases, there was relatively little impact on neighborhood associations. The biggest changes were in the Ward 2, Ward 3 area. Under scenario 1, a good chunk of the Amazon neighborhood would move from Ward 3 to Ward 2. And then under scenario 2, that same piece of Amazon neighborhood would move from Ward 3 to Ward 2, as well as a small piece of the Fairmont neighborhood. And then if you look there at the right, you can see how we did on the numbers for scenario 2. The largest ward is 0.7 over. Smallest ward is 0.8 under, so a difference of 1.5%, again, well within that 3% target. So that summarizes the scenarios. Now I'll take you out just a bit and show you our timeline. So we're here in September, we received and reviewed the census data, we prepared scenarios, and we're looking for your direction to see if these are scenarios, one or both, that we should take to the community for their engagement. October would primarily be community engagement on a scenario or scenarios. We would then bring back those results to you, and then you would potentially direct staff on a preferred scenario, and then start to make any changes you want to make to that preferred scenario, either on your thoughts or based on the community feedback. In November, we would review that revised preferred scenario, and you would direct staff to prepare an ordinance and the final map. And then in December, you would adopt new ward boundaries. You may recall this is about a month faster than the timeline that we presented to you back in June. There's a few reasons for that. One is we received the census data earlier than we thought we would. Secondly, that data showed that we needed relatively minimal changes, and the geography worked out pretty well, so we thought the process could likely be shorter. And third, and perhaps most important, is that in coordination with Lane County elections, we learned that they really need our boundaries by the end of the year so that they can make changes to precincts early in the new year to be ready for the May primary election. And again, a reminder of that primary filing period for that opened a couple of weeks ago. We are letting all potential candidates that are filing or that inquire, we're letting them all know that our ward boundaries are still subject to change at this point in time. That filing period closes in March, and again, the election in May. So a quick review of the engagement with the community that we're planning on doing over the next month. We will have a website that has all of the council meeting materials and packets, including tonight's. We will also have a map viewer that will be available. Sort of, this is a live interface where community members can move around on the map. They'll have both scenarios there. They'll have all the way down to the census block as a base layer, so they can see population by census block. They'll be able to see neighborhood association boundaries, and they can look at those scenarios and sort of see how they map out on the ground relative to the existing wards. There'll also be a survey posted online where community members can let us know if they have a preference for certain adjustments to ward boundaries, and we can take any and all feedback there. We'll also be doing some targeted outreach. We'll be at Neighborhood Leaders Council next week. We'll also be extending an invitation to all neighborhood associations that would like a presentation, and we'll do some more targeted outreach to other entities such as the Chamber of Commerce, the League of Women Voters, and some others. We'll likely host a virtual open house where community members can drop in, learn a little bit more about the scenario or scenarios, and then also provide feedback. And then finally, there'll be a public forum on October 25th at the end of the engagement period where you can hear directly from the community on their thoughts about changes to the wards. So again, next steps, looking for direction from you tonight on whether we should take one or both scenarios forward to the community. We'll then move into that community engagement period, and then at the end of October, we'll summarize that engagement and move forward. And with that, open it up to questions and discussion.
Thank you. That was a really a great presentation, very clear. And Claire, and then Mike.
Ward 7 rules. I couldn't help myself. And if we go with if we have to expand Councillor Keating's ward, he'll have more options for housing. Open up a little more of the housing market for him there. Sorry.
I aim to represent more renters. So thank you, Councilor. Thank you.
I just think it's great that people are moving to Ward 7 more than any other ward. It is the best part of the city. I tell everyone that. So thank you, Jason, and the other staff that worked on this. I think it's a very rational approach that you've taken, and you've reflected the direction that you received from this council in terms of how you've approached it. I think the first scenario does seem to be the better one, just in terms of how things are going to lay out. But I think it's valuable to offer two scenarios when you're going out to ask, so people can compare and contrast. So I support the city manager's recommendation to move this forward for public engagement. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike, and then Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. I support it as well. Jason, could you bring up the map that shows also on it the percentage changes, like the first map that you showed? And in the time while you're bringing that up for us, I just want to say that I think that you and those who've worked with you on this have done a masterful job of the overall kind of approach to it. I love the idea where you said, hey, these areas, look at the differences, they match up. This is the lowest impact to the community sort of alterations to the wards that I think one could figure out how to do. And I think that's a good thing. And so I think you're to be, praised for great thinking here on how to approach the work. I also want to look at this and say that it seems North and Northwest Eugene are the places to be. And this is where all the growth is happening. If Alan, I don't mean to leave Alan out here, if one considers that the growth in Ward 3 is around the university, and that may not be true, I may be wrong, but if that's university growth, then you could say that the housing growth and the people, finding new places to live are predominantly doing it in North and Northwest Eugene. By if you average those two out, 6%, where others are losing. So boy, I hope North Eugene is getting 10% more when it comes to parks funding and transportation funding. I'm just going to throw that out for my colleagues as an advocate of the people in North Eugene. So please note that, we're in worse need of it up here than the rest of everybody else. So thank you very much and well done, Jason.
Matt.
Considering we just saw the breakdown of the property tax rates, I would also suggest that we're all chipping in, Counselor. We're all chipping in. I want to make it clear to folks maybe watching it at home or monitoring this, that one of the counselors whose ward is the most affected is not here to participate in the discussion tonight. And we're not necessarily deciding tonight. We're just advancing managers' two recommendations for public input. And I really look forward to said public input, and in particular, hearing from neighborhood associations, because one could make a strong argument that neighborhood associations that are represented by multiple counselors may have just doubled or tripled their impact. Where it looks like Ward 2 is expanding, both the Amazon and Fairmont neighbors, I look forward to touching base with them and having a robust conversation about their needs. And as mentioned at the top of the conversation, right here in South Eugene, we need more rentals available. There's a dearth of rental housing availability, and it looks like, at least in that first scenario, possibly the second, that there will be more economic diversity added to Ward 2, and I look forward to that. So I, like my colleagues have expressed, am in favor of advancing the two recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy.
Thank you, Mayor. I brought this up before and I gained 0 traction, so I'm not necessarily expecting any more traction tonight, but I just wanted to raise the issue of Ward 8 representing the vast majority of our industrial area. And this is an important group. It's important to our economy. It's important for the jobs they provide. And, you know, where if you look at South Eugene, we have multiple wards that penetrate into South Eugene that can be, you know, a counselor voicing the issues that come before those areas. At the same time, with most of this being in one ward, and I do enjoy representing the people in this, it's not about that. It's just about I would like to see, you know, another counselor's voice be addressing some of the same situations I see, just to give more weight to the discussion. So I just throw this out again. With that said, I do think the division, you know, based on the least amount of impact makes sense. I think staff has done a very good job of that. I just wanted to flag that piece about our West Eugene commercial industrial area. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, another round.
Can't get the button pressed here. All right, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. I just want to, you know, support my colleague and say, Jason, I hate more than anything adding to your workload, but I would actually appreciate seeing another option that might split some of that industrial area off into another ward, as I believe, and am probably wrong, but I believe that would have very little impact on population. And if it has very little impact on population and can be done in line with what Councilor Groves is saying, I think it's a good idea. So I know, again, I don't want to add to your workload, but I'd love to see that option, a 0 change addition of of industrial area to another counselor. Thank you.
Councilor Evans.
You know, I don't mind the suggestion that that Councilor Clark has, but I will point out, if my ward line were to extend south a little bit more, we're looking at taking in part of the Roosevelt area, maybe all of Roosevelt, or having that as the line. There's several smaller neighborhoods over there that are contending with different issues around the industrial area. But I will tell you this, Randy, you're going to keep JX Baxter. I don't want that headache.
Matt.
You are all welcome to come to El Rapa and talk J.H. Baxter with the Lane Regional Air Protection Agency. And Councilor Groves and I have, and Councilor Semple, the three of us have attended downtown neighborhood association meetings, and only Councilor Semple and Councilor Siret represent a portion of downtown. So I appreciate that opportunity and the invitation, and I welcome more opportunities to meet folks and interests throughout the municipality. But the suggestion, while I recognize the well-intentioned merits, the suggestion deviates from the requests that this council made of staff in determining what the new ward boundaries would be. So while it's an interesting, intriguing suggestion, it essentially changes the rules mid-game. We asked staff to come up with scenarios based on A, B, and C, X, Y, and Z, whatever our recommendations were. And while I recognize the well-intentioned merits, I don't think it's necessarily appropriate to ask staff to come up with a third scenario when the two in front of us the two in front of us adhere to our requests and do the least amount of disruption in the neighborhoods and check off all the boxes that we've already requested. So I would be in favor of advancing the two tonight and encouraging counselors to continue to do outreach well beyond their boundaries, because we all have an interest in the thriving success of Eugene as a whole.
Thank you. Claire.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate Councilor Groves, and he did bring it up before, and it did not have traction, I think, for a reason. And Councilor Keating is speaking in part to that reason. You know, no matter where J.H. Baxter is located, it's a problem for the whole city, even though it has the most impacts on the people living nearby. But it's a responsibility of, you know, this council, if we have the authority to do anything about it, which we may or may not. But, you know, we're responsible for all of our wards. And, you know, I have plenty of industrial commercial in my ward, and I don't see any particular challenge around that. And I agree with Councilor Keating. We gave staff, you know, the direction that we voted on, and that was what the majority said we wanted to do. And I would not support a last minute change and requiring a third scenario this evening, which is kind of how I hear that recommendation.
Randy.
Thank you, Mayor. And just for the record, I was not trying to duck out of J.H. Baxter. This was just merely some of the work I've been doing with West Eugene that you're all well aware of. It would just be nice to have another voice, and I would encourage my colleagues to listen and reach out as you can and as you have opportunity, because this community that produces so many jobs in our area, it is important to all of us. And it just be helpful to feel like there's more voices. And I have felt supported on some issues that I've brought forward, but it just, sometimes it feels like trying to go it alone with some really important occupants here in our city. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Greg. You're still on mute.
Okay. Yeah, I was kidding about J.H. Baxter, but Randy's right and Claire is right. You know, the whole city is all of our responsibilities, and each ward has its unique challenges. And right now, we're having an affordable housing challenge in Bethel, and particularly in Ward 6, where a developer has bought a mobile home park and has full intentions of developing it to the point where the people who are living there, who are mostly seniors, will not be able to afford to live there anymore. So the price of rentals are going to go up. And we may see some other mobile home parks that are going to be targets for purchasing and redevelopment into a higher category or higher class of house.
All right. Okay, thank you for those comments, and reading the room and reading body language from Mike. I'm assuming that you're not trying to put another motion on the table, and so thank you for that. I think among other things, we're on a timeline, and so sending staff back to the drawing board would throw that off and make it pretty complicated for the election cycle. So so I think with that, Jennifer, I think we're ready to put a motion on the table.
Thank you, Mayor. So I move to initiate community engagement on ward boundary scenarios.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed, none. Thank you very much. And I meant to mention before that Alan was tracking this pretty closely, and I talked to him. I think he reached out to Jason, so he hasn't been left out of this conversation, even though he had a work conflict today. So thank you all for that. And with that, we're adjourned until our 7:30 public hearings. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jason.